Start. Our third presenter this morning and final presenter is Ms. Nadia Slater. She is the Assistant Director at the Agency for Public Information. She is also attached to the Prime Minister's office. She is a journalist and has worked with UNESCO on the Garifuna Language Retrieval Project. Ms. Slater is a graduate of the University of the West Indies in Media and Communication. She will present to us this morning. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I promise to be brief. My paper examines Baliso, sacred lands and economic opportunity. Baliso is an historical landscape that is both connected to an event and a people. Thus, it is also a site of memory. It has significant cultural heritage value to both the nationals of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Garifuna people around the world. It is among the smallest yet dynamic cultures to come out of the Caribbean. Now, the Garifuna trace their history back to a shipwreck, and we've heard the story before of two Spanish slave ships that shipwrecked off the coast of Bequia. And these slaves intermarried with the island Caribs and thereby brought about the Garifuna. However, as Dr. Adrian Fraser pointed out, there are other schools of thought. And one also mentioned that there was an expedition by a prince called Abu Bakri from the Kingdom of Mali in the 13th century. And it was claimed that he landed here on St. Vincent at Beira. And thereby, that's how Beira got its name. It's actually Beira. In the years that followed, the Garifuna developed a distinctive language, cultural heritage, complete with music, art, and traditions, as well as spiritual beliefs, flourishing as free black people in St. Vincent. However, as the 1600s turned into the 1700s, and the colonial European powers started to take more of an active interest in St. Vincent, Garifuna fortunes changed dramatically. In those days, control over St. Vincent volleyed back and forth between the British and the French. In 1763, the Treaty of Paris gave the Britons full sovereignty over St. Vincent, setting off a war with the Kalinago and by extension the Garifuna. The Carib Wars were wars of liberation. However, the numerically superior British forces and advanced military equipment defeated the Garifuna. After many years of war, and we would know this, the First and Second Carib Wars, the Garifuna and Kalinagos were defeated in 1796. Approximately 5,000 Garifuna surrendered and were subsequently interned on Baliso. The Garifuna fought so ferociously during the First and Second Carib Wars that the British did not want them on the island. They, however, had made a pact with the Yellow Caribs, which were the Kalinago, and gave them lands north of the Dry River. But they didn't want to have anything at all to do with the Garifuna people because they feared that they would spring another uprising. They wanted the Garifuna out and interned them as prisoners of war on the island of Baliso. In defeat, the Caribs were required to surrender unconditionally. This included loss of entire homeland, culture, and ultimately their lives. By late October 1796, approximately 4,195 black Caribs, 44 slaves, and 102 yellow Caribs were sent to Baliso. The last two categories, however, were subsequently returned to the mainland. Approximately 5,000 Garifuna were rounded up and sent to Baliso. About half of them died there as disease, melancholy, and starvation reduced the population to around 2,500. The genocidal act of the British authorities on Baliso resulted in the deaths of thousands from a malignant fever, variously diagnosed as typhus or yellow fever. Many Garifuna died within a week of contracting the mysterious illness, and death was relatively frequent. When the remainder were rounded up in British naval ships under the leadership of Captain Barrett of the HMS Experiment, most of the Garifuna people's names were changed from French names and original Garifuna and Kalinago to Spanish names. They were subsequently deported to Roatan, Honduras on April 12th. Today, a majority of the Garifuna people have Spanish names. They reside in countries such as Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Belize, and the United States. The Garifuna people have maintained their culture despite their ordeal with the Spanish, French, and British colonial experience. The survivors of British injustice formed the nucleus of the modern Garifuna community in the diaspora. Conclusively, it is of historical significance that the Black Carriers recognize themselves and the connection to St. Vincent. And now I'm going to look at Baliso with its potential ecotourism value, while still at the same time maintaining its legacy as a place of sacredness. Ecotourism is defined by its sustainability focus, its connection to cultural heritage and cultural tourism. It often uses the natural landscape in a minimal way to appease a niche market. Furthermore, it uses other natural endowments, such as locals, more readily and holistically. Baliso provides potential for ecotourism, as it's an historic site, thus having a tourism value that is untouched. It can even be developed as a museum and monument as a site of dark tourism. Additionally, because of this historical significance, it can create a type of pilgrimage, much like the Muslims in Saudi Arabia when they go to the Mecca. Finally, its location to other Grenadine islands that have practiced traditional mass tourism and marine tourism makes it an ideal ecotourism site that is visited and connected to mass tourism. Baliso holds an important place in historical record and is valuable as a home of rare birds and wildlife. There's a potential to establish a Garifuna village and museum on the island, where the Garifuna people from St. Vincent and the rest of the world can visit and witness all cultural activities taking place daily, and the exhibits of sites could be seen before they were exiled. This would also accomplish the dual goals of preserving the culture and providing jobs for locals, especially those of indigenous descent or those talented in culture and the arts, therefore providing economic stimulus to St. Vincent's economy. Also, Baliso as a site of dark tourism. Since it was the site of the internment of over 5,000 Garinagu people and the ultimate death of over 2,000 due to hunger, disease, and indifferent treatment meted out by the British captors, no bodies have ever been removed from the island, and so it is a huge graveyard. People often visit sites of dark tourism and have the ability and opportunity to feel empathy with the victims and the desire to connect with his or her heritage, have an emotional visiting experience. There are also still artifacts to be found from those days, possibly others as well, including treasure. There is this belief that the pirate Blackbeard sailed his ship Queen Anne's Revenge around Baliso waters in the 1700s. Therefore, Baliso is a place that can be explored immensely in terms of its archaeological value. Additionally, Baliso remains sacred ground to the Garifuna. In fact, the pilgrimage is undertaken to the island annually, drawing Garifuna people from around the world to this remote spot where their history almost died. Here they honor their ancestors and the past with prayers, drums, tears, thanks, and praises in what must be among one of the most moving cultural experiences our region has to offer. The pilgrimage to Baliso is held each year in March to coincide with National Heroes Day. Baliso is an extremely small island, a mere 320 acres. The island offers outstanding hiking through its lush terrain and rugged trails, as your waters frame sheltered bays and coves. Crumbling cliffs are brooked by gentle meadows. Exquisite golden beaches arc around the bays on Baliso's eastern and western shores, while the island's high point, Gun Hill, was a lookout for soldiers during the Caribou Wars of 1777 to 1797. Finally, investors can build small facilities for a few overnight guests, though ensuring their security might be challenging. Limited public facilities, washrooms, and outdoor rest areas, including hammocks for rental purposes, and the first aid station. These facilities can have an indigenous make with specific environmental considerations. Also, if need be, for a modern take on glitz, Musteke's dazzling nightlife, shopping, and golf are a swift boat ride away. Now, even in considering this, there are pitfalls and dangers in developing sites as an ecotourism product. And in dealing with Baliso, we want to take these in consideration so that if we are to develop Baliso as an island museum, we do not make these mistakes. The danger of ecotourism often lies in its inability to develop sites and landscapes in an environmentally friendly way, increasing of the small niche market into a mass, the development of a cultural product that may become fake or diluted, and inaccessibility to the site. Firstly, infrastructural development in Baliso would most likely go the route of Musteke, which is a private tourist Grenadine island. It would end up developing hotels in an exclusive and mass tourism way. There's a possibility burial sites could be bulldozed to put up fancy homes for new settlers. Secondly, hotel development and mass tourism may shut out all relevant activities of locals and visitors alike. An inability to use beaches, experience the exquisite landscape, and a denial to visit the site of fallen Garifuna brethren will be a psychological blow to the Garifuna at home and abroad. Thus, its pilgrimages may become less practical or possible. Thirdly, if the island is glamorized with such activities and placed within local expectation and practices, it would be incompatible with a place of emotional and spiritual value to all intentions, not just the Garifuna people. And as an island bloodied in the genocidal treatment of a people, it will therefore lose its authenticity and some of its cultural sacredness. Finally, the weather determines whether you go to Baliso, not the travel agents. As the island lacks an airstrip, the only access to it is that of boats. Thus, proper port and boat services must be made. Additionally, dependent upon the weather and because of the roughness of the Grenadine's channel, persons may be hindered or prevented from coming. There is the real fear that any commercialization of Baliso must factor in the carrying capacity of the island. Carrying capacity is a standard set by tourism providers to regularize people traffic in regular tourism sites and protected areas, sacred sites, war graves, extermination camps, etc. And to enable such providers the means to minimize the damage overuse can do to the integrity of the site and so lower its value and heritage status. Now, the strategies for minimizing the pitfalls and danger and marketing the project. In order to minimize the possible negative effects of this project, a board would have to be appointed to oversee all events. Additionally, government policies would be in place to support sustainability. Finally, the marketing would focus on its nature and the heritage value. A board to oversee the affairs of the island and to ensure transparency and to get the necessary perspectives on developing and administering the site. Any board must be a mixed bag, comprising representatives from both private and public sectors, historians, economists, tourism experts, environmentalists, and tax and heritage site experts, for example, must be part of the professional mix. This board would implement the following 6 policies: establish a memorial to the Garifuna people and institutionalize an annual commemoration ceremony. Guarantee Vincentians access to the island, including significant heritage and natural sites. guarantee that Banana Bay and other archaeological sites remain in situ and not be disturbed to construct jetties. Conduct extensive archaeological investigations on Baliso. Impose a ban on construction of large living structures. Monitor that all beaches remain public beaches. Monitor and enforce all applicable environmental laws. Conclusively, its carrying capacity should be very small and limited, and effective monitoring will be crucial to any type or size of development. It is a critical concept in tourism management that assumes that there is a direct relationship between the number of visitors to a tourist site and the impacts produced in the environment, on the environment and on the wildlife, and that these impacts can be managed via regulation of the number of people or groups of people that access visitor sites. In order to prevent pitfalls and maintain sustainability, the government could consider various policies such as partnerships, legal site protection, debt for nature swaps, and establishing a World Heritage Sites. The partnerships can create land trusts focused on preserving indigenous lands. Indigenous and non-indigenous can help to protect indigenous lands like the natives of the United States. This provides the opportunity for support across a national and cultural context. Legal site protection is a tool used for most land trusts outside of purchasing of the land for conservation. It constitutes a collaboration between local civil intention governments and transnational companies. In this, the government would not own the land, but it would be declared a heritage site of the Garifuna. These initiatives will prevent the privatization and commercialization of the island. Debt for nature swaps is a financial conservation strategy. It is a win-win arrangement for small island developing states like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as it lessens their debt burden. Investor supports enable forgiveness of international debts and channel funds into vital environmental projects. The incentive promotes sustainability. Finally, World Heritage Site listing would bring an awareness to the sites, increasing heritage and ecotourism value, and possibly increase aid from other countries and heritage organizations. This can bring increased funds to the economy and promote the retention of national and cultural heritage. In relation to the marketing of the island, as a UNESCO Tourism World Heritage Site, providing a combination of a cultural village and an untouched island. Furthermore, it will be packaged along with traditional mass tourism to attract visitors from various islands in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, thus exploiting the diversity in being an archipelagic state. Additionally, increased solidarity will be created between indigenous peoples throughout the region, such as in Dominica, Trinidad, and Belize, providing discounted rates for services as it is a heritage to their people. Finally, social media would be used to brand Baliso as a natural island museum. It would be seen as a monument to the past, linking the idyllic paradise tourism with that of an historic heritage tourism. Once a prestigious eco-friendly brand is created and globally recognized, it would have increased power in order to maintain its quality, collect funding, and prevent exploitation, thus maintaining the idea of being an ecotourism site and also maintaining the legacy of Baliso as a place that is sacred to Garifuna people and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you.